So why are so many millennials and so many first-time home buyers frozen in their tracks, not ready to purchase? Well, we're going to get into that right now. Why are so many first-time home buyers frozen in their tracks, not ready to make the purchase? Well, here's the thing. It's a lot different to make a purchase when you know the market is climbing. When it seems or appears to be in a decline, even though it might just be flattening, when it appears to feel like it's in a decline, you think you're making the wrong move. And that crash in '08 did happen. And people lost a lot of money. But the thing about it is a lot of those people who lost the money, they got it back. And they got back into the homes, and they got back into homes at reduced rates. And frankly, it didn't need to crash. Although there was bad things that had happened and there wasn't good lending practices that were going on, the feds could have come out with the medicine, and they could have given the reduced interest rates to the home owners, but they didn't. They gave the bailout to the banks. So here we are in a state right now where we've had a lot of inflation because of what the Fed, what the government's been doing to create all that liquidity during the COVID lockdown crisis. And then they had to raise rates and do that quantitative tightening to really slow things down, to slow down the inflation. Now they've done that, and there's all this dialogue about potential job loss, AI replacing jobs, and the income's not being there to sustain what has been going on. Now, if you're a first-time home buyer, you're someone who has the income and you have the down payment to make a purchase and you're kind of frozen, well, now's the time. Some of these bad headlines are actually good signs. They're the good signals. And a lot of times when we're in a buyer's market, we don't realize it until after the fact. And if you're waiting for that catalyst to kick in again and start going up, well, here comes all the competition. There's a lot of home purchasers that are just kind of waiting on the sidelines right now. So I did an emergency market update about December and what we were seeing, and we saw the inventory on the west end go up. And this is a lot of where we would see our more affordable or starter homes. We're going to see that trend happen on the east end, and we're also going to see that happen in areas of Oxnard, Moore Park, and Newberry Park. A lot of these entry-level homes that are under $1 million. So what we're seeing right now is we're just seeing a regular market. We're seeing people put their homes on the market to sell. Now, this inventory spike is going to help soften prices, and hopefully if the Fed lowers the interest rate, you're kind of getting that double whammy of good for you buyer, where you could be saving $500 to $1,000, not just $100 or $200 a month, but like $500 to $1,000 a month on a home purchase, on ownership. See, the thing is, it isn't about the cost or the price. It's about the ability to own and be an asset owner. That's the key. That's why you want to move forward, because here's the reality. The reality is two big things. Is that we are in a slowdown of construction. It sounds like a negative. Construction of new homes is down. They're not building, not faith in the market. What does that do to inventory? There's more houses, figuratively, burning up in California than being built. So you've got to take that into consideration. And the thing about it is that as we see that inventory thin, we're going to see the prices go up again. So one thing we do know is that the rents are going to go up in the future. So we've only got, a year and a half maybe of this buyer's market, if that. But what do we see in the fall and this winter? As we always see the buyers kind of freeze up, move out of the market. We see motivated sellers putting their homes on the market, sometimes fix their properties, and we're seeing these prices come down. So it makes it really hard to be a buyer and be like, it's coming down, I don't want to go in, and then the next thing that happens is it goes down. No. If we have any sort of quantitative easing and they do interest rate cuts like significantly, so you get a discount on your purchase, instead of $800, maybe $750, and you're at maybe a 6% interest rate, and if they do a significant cut, then you move down to a 5%. So you're actually saving money. You're restarting your amortization schedule, let's be clear, but you're actually being able to acquire the asset that you want, which is what you want. You want to be holding it, and you're going to be able to get into it and get better financing in the future, even if it comes down a little bit. So the thing about it is the longer you wait to buy, the harder it's going to be. So people that are on the 2, 3, 4, and 5 year out purchase kind of map, like, oh, I'll get to it when I think about it. I'll get to it when I'm ready. It's going to be so much harder to own, because what we're seeing now in these markets is we're seeing the homeowners own a home and then they're buying another home. It's not institutional investors. That's not it. I know they want to play the culprit. Like it's the institute. They own like less than 2% of rentals. It's mom and pop owners. It's the ones who've gotten ahead, built some equity. They have a property free and clear. They want to buy a rental property. I met a couple yesterday that they had purchased a property a couple years ago, and spent some time with them then. And then we went and looked at a property yesterday because I said, hey, I think this property's going to drop. I think you could get, it's been on long enough, a month. They didn't get the number. And it's a little bit of a fixture. You could probably get it. And then it had dropped almost a couple hours later. They had dropped it to that price. I said it would be a great acquisition. And of course, they're getting the low institutional offers are buying low, but that's what we call the wedge deal, is between where retail and where a flipper or a cash investor would purchase. You pay a little bit more than that, and then you're the one who's owning the asset. You're the one taking it to the next level. So there's tremendous opportunity right now. We tend to see some of the best opportunities to purchase in December. I've been twisting people's arms in winters past where it's like, oh my gosh, there's, one of the major banks was doing this 2-point buy down, and this one person did it and acted on it and got the property. And many people didn't even want to think about it. And like, that's the thing, is you got all these people that don't want to think about buying right now, but it's the best time. And we're seeing that inventory go up. The inventory is above the absorption rate. So the absorption rate is when we see the properties come on and go into escrow. And when you're seeing about 60 new properties come on in a month, 60 go into escrow and 60 close, that's good. But what we're starting to see is more properties come on and the absorption going into escrow go down. So 60 to 40, maybe 50 close or 45 close. So we'll see it kind of trend down a little through January and February. It'll pick back up again in April. So this is the market normalizing. We're really just having a flat line. So while there's a lot of this sensationalism, I want to encourage buyers, especially first-time home buyers. You don't need 20% down. You can do an FHA loan, and you can write an offer. And even if the property's a fixer, you can use that leverage to negotiate to get fixes done before closing. The sellers that are on the market are motivated. They want to sell. They want to exit. And it's just about figuring out which one, of course, which home you like, and then which one is the deal. So if you really need a deal, you've got to take massive action, write more offers, take more activity, get out there, see what things can go for. I had someone call the other day and they said, well, do you think they would take 800 for that? I'm like, well, we won't know. That's what I call inventing scenarios. We don't know till you put pen to paper. I can call them. We get calls like this all the time. Would you take this low? Would you take that low? It's not real. Because what if you said yes? And then what are you going to do? And if you're not ready to write an offer, then it's no. The answer is no. So it's just not going to tell you. But if you put pen to paper and you want to write that lowball one and see it through and do some negotiating, not every seller is motivated, but some of them are. And some of them, more than others. So you got to go to where the deal is, not where you want it to be. And just because one person was going to take a big hit doesn't mean the other one isn't. But the thing is, in a buyer's market, you have options. It's so much different than it was in 2023 when we had that thin inventory. It was literally a fourth of what it is now. And per neighborhood, you were like, okay, well, you can have this house, or this is the only house. Do you want it at whatever price that's listed at? And that was it. So sometimes when we really get to feel in the buyer's market, it's counterintuitive because it feels like it feels crashy. There's these signs, these signals, but really what's happening is the market's leveling out. And properties that are fixer properties, they shouldn't be selling close to what premium properties are selling for. There should be a true market as you've got the cash difference, the time and the money it would take to improve it to beat at that premium level. So it's only going to be flat for so long. I don't have a crystal ball, but barring some sort of major black swan event happening in this next year, I think 27 and 28. Some people are trying to say 27 and 28 are going to be lesser years now. Now, not with what we have going on in the economy, not what things are going to turn around. It's going to be a very bustling economy. So we have this short moment where the quantitative tightening created less liquidity. We're going to get into it. So that was my second reason, is the monetary policy. So because building is going slower and because the Fed will print money, We know that inflation is going to be in the future because the government cannot pay down the debt without printing the money. So it's a fact that they're going to do it. So as deflationary as they like to be, we're not going to see much of that. Like, we're seeing it now. And this is probably about it. Maybe we'll see more in 2026. But if you see more in 2026 and you buy a property now, you're going to get a chance to do that rate reduction, because if they do the QE, if they do the quantitative easing, the interest rates are going to drop and you get a discount. So shop while the competition is thin, because once that QE comes in and people realize what they can get for their dollar on the interest rates, there's going to be a lot more competition out there. So thanks so much for watching. If you guys are a first-time home buyer, if you guys are millennial, a generation, you do not have to do this on your own. I should have said that earlier. The biggest thing I see in technology is people on their phones, whether it's social media, Zillow, any of these apps, looking is that the consumer today, if they're younger than 40 years old, they feel like they have to do it themselves. And they end up in these contracts, either listing direct or, with a Zillow agent or with a new construction where they're dealing just with them. Get some representation. A lot of these changes, they didn't benefit the buyer, but you can hire a buyer's agent, and the buyer always brings the money. This is the key fact for you guys to know. The buyer has always brought the money, and there's so many different ways to pay your agent to come out of the deal, so they advocate for you so that you get the most off on your price. We recently got a $75,000 reduction in price, $35,000 in credits and concessions. That is a complete 180 from the market that we saw just a couple of years ago, where sellers were actually getting 2-month rent back, $100,000, $200,000 over asking. It's ridiculous. So we're in an opposite market, and I know when that momentum, you feel like it's going to go down, and it could go down a little bit more, but what's holding it in place is that baby boom generation, is all the people who have those low interest rates that would rather, if they're going to move, they'll just have it as a rental. My wife just told me today, so-and-so's, they're moving back to their hometown up the coast of California. I'm like, well, it's sorry to see them go. Of course, you have to ask the question, we're talking about selling. Oh, no, they're going to keep it as a rental. Great, because that's what I would tell them to do. That's what I would tell them to do, is keep that property as a rental. You've got your low interest rate. There's no reason to sell. They're going to go back and live, take care of mom who's not doing so well. So things like that, there's that's who you're really competing against, is that strength of ownership. Those investors, those second home buyers, those people who are buying the properties, single family homes as income properties and putting the ADUs on them. If you're a first time home buyer, you've got to beat them. You've got to do what you can to get into owning an asset, because in the future, we're just going to have more inflation and these costs are going to go up. So scary as it is now, this is actually the signs. This is the inflection of buy. Not to mention, there is one local who is one of those institutional investors that created a big fund. They closed on one of the properties that one of my colleagues had. I looked it up and I was like, oh my gosh, that one. And if you guys watch enough YouTube, he's on there. But they closed on one not too long ago, just above college, right in here, at pretty close to fair market for the fixture that it was. But it was a great and excellent neighborhood, and that's what they call a wedge deal. And they're going to buy that property. They're going to probably hold that property for freaking ever. So if you guys are in the market and you're feeling scared or skittish, there's such a heavy weight of solid home ownership that will hold this market up. And these signs and these flags of decline they're not red flags, they're green flags, they're go flags. Let's go out and get it. So if you need help, if you want a non-obligation call conversation, it's free advice all the time for anybody. I don't charge you till you hire me, so you have to want to hire me. But I love giving advice like I would to people, like I would give to my own family, and say, hey, this is the moment, this is the time to lean in and do it. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.